Hey, what's up guys, welcome back to Dragalia Lost. In this video I'm going to mainly talk about the Void Battle bosses. Void Battles aren't that difficult for veteran players since the difficulty is somewhere in between Imperial Onslaught and High Dragon Trials. However, these bosses do seem like they can be quite difficult for newer players, so for this video I'm going to break down each boss battle and give you guys any tips that I've picked up so far. If you guys have anything to add on, then feel free to comment down below. Before I break down the bosses, let me briefly go over what your goals are for Void Battles as far as progression goes. Each of these bosses drop unique materials that you can use to craft Void Weapons. These new Void Weapons don't have any skills, but they do have abilities. Some of these weapons have Bane abilities that deal more damage to certain type of enemies, and some even have dual resistance abilities that nullifies debuffs. If you are a relatively new player that do not have any high tier weapons, then your goal should be to farm the mushroom boss to get solid fungus and shiny spores in order to craft water weapons that have the dual resistance ability. These water weapons are great to use against the steel golem boss. Once you do that, you should farm the golem for steel slabs and golem cores. These materials are used for making fire weapons that also have the dual resistance ability, and these fire weapons with dual resistance are used for fighting Void Zephyr. Now Void Zephyr drops Great Feathers and Zephyr runes. These two materials are used to craft fire weapons that have the high Midgard Bane ability, and obviously they are used for high Midgard trials. A lot of people are wondering if these high Midgard fire weapons are worth crafting. I think they are definitely worth crafting only if you do not already have a 5-star fire weapon. These void fire weapons are a great alternative since they are pretty easy to craft. You don't have to grind as much materials compared to the original 5-star elemental weapons. The downside is that they have less general use than 5-star elementals, but like I said, they are easy to craft and these new weapons are great for newer players. I do want to mention that since these void weapons lack skills, you're losing one extra skill that could be used for iframing, so that's pretty huge. Also, since 5-star Fire Sword and Blade have damage skills attached to the weapon, they do considerably more damage than these new void weapons. Anyways, you can also use the materials from Zephyr to make 5-star Void Light and Water weapons. These ones don't have any particular Bane ability attached to them, so they are just meant to be used for general use. Alright, so with that over with, let's finally dive into the bosses. Let's begin with the Mushroom Boss. This boss punishes players that use his skills randomly or mistimes their skills. The Mushroom Boss does a lot of red circle attacks. It's always like one red attack into another, and each of its attacks has a decently large radius. In the beginning of the fight, you should always watch out for its second attack. It always does like this smaller red attack followed by a bigger red circle attack. If you are using a character with skill prep, or if you manage to fill up one of your skills in time, then you should definitely bank one skill so you can use it to iframe its second attack. Otherwise, be prepared to quickly run out of its range. If you get hit by it, it does inflict paralysis, so maybe bring a character with paralysis resistance if you tend to get hit a lot. Shortly after, it'll start doing this purple dash attack where it dashes across the map. It dashes a total of 3 times, so be prepared to dodge 3 times. Now it's kind of difficult to get any attacks in during this time since it keeps zooming across the map, so a strategy you can do for this part is to bring one character with a freeze skill to freeze him before it starts using the dash attack. When you get the mushroom into overdrive, then it will use this attack called Disperse. It'll let off some gas that inflicts paralysis, and the mushroom will shrink and multiply into several smaller mushrooms. These mushroom clones will basically do the same kind of attacks as the original. They are pretty annoying, so you should definitely try your best to get rid of them as soon as possible. If you are using a blade character like Yasu, you can just focus your attacks and skills on the original mushroom. Since his normal attacks and skills cover a decently large area, they can usually hit multiple mushrooms if they are clumped up together. And that's really all the tips that I can give on the specific boss, since the shroom boss is rather straightforward. Second boss is Steel Golem. This boss is probably the easiest boss out of the 4 in my opinion. He just totally gets annihilated by freeze. If you can get a team together filled with units like Orsim, Lily, Cleo, or Celery, then you can basically just perma-freeze this guy until he dies. But if you can't cheese him by using freeze, then let me go over some key attacks that he does to help you out. In the beginning of the fight, 90% of the time he always does the same attacks. Sometimes desyncs will happen and it'll start doing something wonky, but 90% of the time it'll start off by doing a normal attack in front of him. You can simply dodge roll to its side or behind him to avoid it. Then it'll do a red slam attack that targets in front of him. You should be perfectly fine if you dodge roll behind the boss prior to the slam attack. After the slam attack, he'll roll across the map, just dodge it and chase him down. When you get him into overdrive, it does this purple attack that covers almost the entire map. 2 sets of purple circles will appear. The second set of circles will always go off before the first set. So if you are in a situation where you can't find a safe spot, then you can just stand on top of any of the circles from the first set and dodge roll out immediately after the second set of circles goes off. When he does this pose where it looks like he's trying to throw like a shot put or something, that means it's about to uppercut into the air and do a X-shaped red attack. This attack comes out really quick, so when you see him doing the shot put throwing pose, be prepared to iframe the upcoming attack. And that's all the tips for this boss, at least from me. I don't think you guys will have much trouble on this boss in public rooms. Lilies are literally everywhere in pubs and she just destroys this guy. Keep in mind that if you are playing melee, then consider crafting a water weapon with dual res for this fight. The third boss is Manticore. At the start of the match he shoots out like 6 red circles, so what you want to do is run diagonal towards the top or the right. It doesn't matter, just try to avoid the red circles. After that, Manticore will do a quick dash followed by a tail swipe. If you are playing melee, I would recommend trying to stay on his side. So his gimmick starts when he enters overdrive mode. I don't think it's possible to deplete his overdrive gauge, so this is kind of his gimmick. When he's in overdrive mode, all of his attacks loses all the reticles and indicators. You basically have to memorize and have a feel of the range and distance of all of his attacks from this point on. The moves that you should watch out for is when he roars. When he roars, meteors comes out of the sky and lands around him. They come out very quickly, so you'll have to be quick to iframe dodge it. You can also just run towards the Manticore because the safe spot is the area close to his body. Now he also has a different move that also starts with the roar. He'll roar and this dark veil will appear around his body, and then he'll do like this earthquake type move that targets the areas in front and behind him. The earthquake move does tons of damage, so make sure to avoid it by skill iframes or by standing a dodge roll distance away from the side of his body. So because Manticore is the most dangerous when he enters overdrive, it might be worthwhile to use the Forbidden Relic Wormprint for the gauge inhibitor ability. This ability will slow the rate the mode gauge increases by 15 or 20%, and because Manticore stays in overdrive forever, Ryozan is a pretty good character for this fight because he has overdrive Punisher. Also, anyone with a skill that can stun is also great for this fight. Whenever he roars, you can just quickly try to stun him to cancel the attack. Characters with stun skills include the new Circus Spirit Girl, I forgot her name, Raymond, and Fritz I think has a stun as well. Alright, last boss is Zephyr. He's basically an easier high mid guard. You're going to want to bring a healer for this fight. Verica or Hildegard will work. I prefer Hildegard for this fight because you don't need too much heals, you just need a little bit to get by. So Hildegard is great because she provides enough heals, energy buff for more DPS, and she has a shield that can block a lot of Zephyr's attacks. All melee characters must be equipped with a void fire weapon that has dull resistance. This is very important because if you get hit by Zephyr, he inflicts dull strength on your character and you'll end up doing like 90% less damage. In addition, he also inflicts Dragon Delay. Dragon Delay basically depletes a portion of your Dragon gauge. If you manage to dodge all of Zephyr's avoidable attacks, then it is possible to transform into a dragon during this fight, so keep that in mind. Alright, so in the beginning of the fight, he always starts off with his 2 melee attacks. His first melee attack is a little peck, you just gotta dodge roll to avoid it. His second melee attack is a little gale ball wind thingy that shoots in front of him. This attack is followed by multiple tornadoes. These tornadoes are active for a pretty long time, so depending on the animation time on your character's skills, you may or may not be able to iframe it. For example, Makoto's skill 2 is way too short, but his skill 1's animation is just long enough to last until the tornado disappears. After the tornadoes, he'll do another set of tornado attacks, then a red circle will appear right underneath him. This move right here can be iframed with a short animation skill. Also, I believe when he is not in overdrive, he'll always do his 2 melee attacks after this move. I'm not 100% on that, but it seems like that's the case. When he enters overdrive, he'll start doing this move called Savage Squall. I don't believe this skill can be avoided at all, however, it can be blocked with Hildegard's shield, so keep that in mind. When you get hit, you'll be inflicted with dull strength and dragon delay, and it also causes a huge knockback on your character. To avoid getting knocked back, all you have to do is hold Force Strike. If you guys aren't aware, by holding down Force Strike, it'll give your character super armor. Another move that he does in overdrive is this Spiral Tornado move. This move is really easy to dodge. You basically just run and follow the tornado as it spins around. The tornadoes don't appear that quickly, so you can get a few hits here and there as you're running around. Alright, so this is the move that we really have to talk about right here. Zephyr does this move a couple times during the fight. High Midgard and High Brunhilde also does a similar thing, and it's called the Chaser. The closest person to Zephyr will get targeted by the red circle with a huge reticle on it. When you see this, everybody on team has to group together and stack up. By grouping together, the damage dealt from this move will split among all the characters within the circle. I can't tell you how many times I see players run away from the circle in public rooms. It's really funny when the guy with the circle tries to run away and then everyone tries to chase him down. But yeah, I understand why people run away, because most of these guys are new and never faced any of the high dragons yet, so they aren't familiar with the chaser attack. There are circumstances where it's not required for everyone to group up, but for those cases it requires HP or defense buffs from certain fire characters such as Vanessa, Sanoa, and Cerise. And that's pretty much it for Zephyr's moveset. I think the minimum strength requirement in order to beat this boss is probably around 1.5k strength. I think 1.7k or 1.8k strength is required to beat the 122nd challenge. I actually completed the challenge in a public room with Makoto. I don't remember what the other guys had in terms of strength, but my Makoto only has 1.7k strength. If you guys are interested, I'll leave that 122nd challenge playthrough up for you guys to watch at the end of this video. Overall, Void Battles is alright. It doesn't really do much for veteran players, I think. It's more for newer players more so than veteran players. It's really just there so newer players have an easier time to farm equipment for High Midgard. However, I will say that the treasure trade rewards for Void Battles is the highlight of the game mode. Being able to farm Moonlight Stones and Damascus Crystals is huge, so I'm really happy about that. Anyways, that's gonna be it for this video. I'm gonna let you guys watch my 122nd challenge Zephyr playthrough. If you guys have any questions about anything, then please comment down below. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you guys in the next video.